I wanted my thoughts, opinions to not be
influenced
by those, but there really wasn't anything in there that influenced it. So
yeah.
Opinions still stand.
Okay. Hello and welcome back. This is Don't Watch at Night, a spooky little podcast dedicated to Spanish language horror and Latin American horror. I'm your host, Valerie.
And I'm Veronica.
We're back. When was the last time you all heard from us? The live stream.
Idea.
I figured out what I did wrong, and next time we'll have all our ducks in a row. So anyway, what are you doing? What are you up to this weekend?
Kind of last minute, we ended up driving there and back to Austin to see Los Lonely Boys at the Paramount Theater.
Oh, how cool.
Friends texted and said, hey, that they had decided last minute to go and would Robert and I want to go also. And I was like, okay.
That's fun. How was it? How was the concert?
It was fun. I hadn't been in the Paramount. The last time I was at the Paramount Theater was, years and years and years ago, maybe like 2 kids ago at least. We were watching, I don't know if they still do that, but they used to, like, in the summer show old movies there.
Yeah,
and
they still do.
They still do that? Okay.
Yeah.
So we had gone to see Rear Window, which is like one of my favorite old movies.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I used to go to the summer classics at the Paramount every now and again. It's been years now too for me to do, but I would love to do that. One of the last classics I saw there might have been White Christmas. Like at holiday time, they'll show White Christmas. So that's good. You said something that triggered a memory, and I was going to bring it up, and now it's like left my brain. So I guess it's not important.
It's back in the ether.
One thing to mention, by the time everyone listens to this episode, this will have already happened. Right now this weekend, the El Paso Horror Fest is happening. So I mention it because even though by the time you hear this, it'll already be done, go and find them on Instagram, El Paso Horror Fest, and follow them so that you can kind of stay in the know on things they might do throughout the year or when it comes time for the next festival next year. Ron and I haven't been. It'd be cool to go. I go out to El Paso area at least once a year, so it'd be great to get out there and do that. As a matter of fact, we're going to be out that way for spring break in March. This week, we watched Las Tinieblas, which is The Darkness. And where do I have it? Okay, so this movie came out in 2016. This is a Mexican post-apocalyptic dystopian horror thriller sort of film. It's directed by Daniel Castro Zimbrón, and it stars Brontis, Jodorowsky as Gustavo, Fernando Álvarez Rebeil as Marcos, Aliocha Sotnikoff as Argel, Camila Robertson Glennie as Luciana, Meraqui Pradis as Kid, and Alejandro Villeli as Old Man. Cinematography by Diego Garcia. I mention it because it's very noteworthy in this movie to me. So here's a little synopsis. An invisible monster torments a boy who lives with his father, brother, and sister in a house in the woods. The family must be kept in isolation in order to avoid a deadly threat. So this film won the Morelia International Film Festival. It won at the Ferratum Film Festival, and it was shortlisted for the Academy Award for Best International Feature Film. Ultimately, it didn't get that nomination, but I watched this just last night. Ron was on top of it. Veronica was Valerie this week, and she watched it ahead of me.
Well, I didn't watch it super early. I watched it yesterday around noon, 1 o'clock.
Yeah, so I watched it last night and texted her immediately afterwards. But anyway, let's get to it, Ron. What did you think of this movie?
I liked it. I mean, it is very much a slow burn. It's slow. It's very, like, it's only an hour and I think like 29, 30 minutes, but it felt a little longer because it is very slow moving. But yeah. I still really ended up liking it. It has a really small cast. There's not a lot of movement in terms of sets. Like, a lot of it takes place in that cabin. There's some scenes outside, but it's a lot in that cabin. So it kind of has we as the audience, I think, experience that same almost claustrophobic feeling that the characters feel.
Did you ever watch the Quiet Place movies?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't watch those. I kept thinking the whole time if this was reminiscent of that. I didn't watch those films, so I don't have a basis of comparison.
I mean, I guess kind of it has that same kind of trapped, like we're trapped in this existence. the acting was good. The kids, Argel was excellent, I thought. Yeah, and it's the kind of movie that, I don't know, my suspicions were like pinging all over the place. And I think it's the kind of movie where once you get to the end, you have to re-examine everything that went before.
I think visually this was a very beautiful film, and I have a lot of positive things to say about it. But I also have a ton of questions.
Well, I have a ton of questions too.
Because I'm just like, what? Like, it ended, and I was like, what?
Oh, you know what it did remind me? What it did remind me of, and this is just in terms of the visual. I don't know if you ever saw that movie Silent Hill.
I didn't. No.
Okay. Just because of the
Is Silent Hill also kind of dystopian?
No. No, it's just weird.
Can I tell you, I don't generally gravitate towards post-apocalyptic films. It depends. I was thinking this is the first particular kind of movie like this that we've watched, isn't it? We haven't watched another dystopian horror thriller, have we?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Nothing that's like, well I guess the platform.
You're asking me? I can never remember how many movies we've watched.
I guess the platform is the only other movie that I would think kind of takes place in some, whether or not it's the future or just some alternative present. You remember the platform?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. This was the first of these kind of movies that we've looked at. And yeah, generally I don't gravitate toward them so much, not because they're not good, but just because I always walk away with a bunch of questions, as I did with this movie. But I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I agree with you. It felt slow. And what's interesting in some of the resources we have linked for people is his first movie is a movie called Thou, which also stars Brontis Jodorowsky. And that movie is apparently slower than this movie. He's like, I wanted to have something a little bit faster paced. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, I think the slow unfolding of it, I think, is going to maybe off-putting for some people. And maybe that's why, because this movie came out in 2016? Why you don't hear about it as much, or maybe it's not as well known outside of Mexico. But I still thought it was pretty good.
I'm trying to think, like, what were the top movies in 2016 that were in the ether? Rebirth, The Veil, A Monster Calls.
I read that book, A Monster Calls. It made me cry.
Miss Peregrine's Peculiar Children. Anyway.
Well, did you have any initial theories and early theories of what was happening? Because even when the title sequence actually comes, like when the title of the movie actually flashes on the screen, we've already lost a character.
Right.
Because what's his name? Gustavo was the dad.
Yes. Whose name, it's funny that they give him a name. The name never gets said in the movie.
It was just
Papa.
Papa. But Gustavo's the dad, and he and the oldest son, Marcos, head out with their gas masks into this apocalyptic world that we're never given any context for, right? So we don't know what happened to the world to make it this way. We don't know how long it's been. We get a sense of maybe how long, or at least minimum how long it's been, because Argel, the boy, who's kind of our main feature character, has never seen an automobile before. He doesn't know what they are. So that gives a little bit of a time sense, at least in his lifetime. It's been that long. And how old would you say Argel is?
I mean, to
me, I
always
suck at judging ages for children.
To me, he looks anywhere between like 12 and 14. Like, okay. He doesn't look very old. I think he's supposed to be like a teenager. So, but if he is, then he's a young teen because he's small. I mean, they're underfed.
Yeah,
so
they're underfed.
It makes sense.
So at least it's been at least that long that the world has been this way, but we're never given any explanation for what happened. Gustavo and Marcos, they head out. And then when Gustavo comes back, presumably they're going out hunting for food or whatever. When Gustavo comes back, Marcos is gone, and all he says is, when Argel asks, well, where's Marcos? And he just says, it took him. And then we get the title. Mm-hmm. So we've already lost a character. Did you have any theories at this point?
I formed theories quickly because, so in that opening sequence, prior to them going out hunting, they're playing like a game of hide and seek in this very small cabin because they have nothing else to do for entertainment. And then the father just, seems like he's hitting the bottle. Like he comes out of the hiding space holding a bottle. And then there's just tension in the cabin. There's always perpetual tension. And he's this stoic, silent man. That was off-putting. And then he just abruptly ends their game and says, it's time to go to bed. And that's the other thing we established in that opening sequence is every night he locks his children in the basement And so as the oldest one, as Marcos is going down the stairs, he's just staring at his father, just in this very accusatory, just pissed off way. Right off the bat, I was just like, what is up with this dad? And so when he comes, I didn't know what to think, but I knew I had misgivings about the father right away. This is giving bad dad vibes. But I didn't necessarily know what to make of it, what it might be.
Mm-hmm.
There is an it, and at some point we're going to see it, and we don't. So,
well, it's not long after that Luciana, our little budding entomologist, she says, and I think this drove my suspicions for the majority of the rest of the movie, where she tells Argel that the darkness is in their dad's room.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking, at this point, I developed an entire backstory. I said, okay, the dad's possessed by whatever the darkness is. He did something to Marcos. His wife must have left him. So now he's just, out of anger, he's secluded him and his children to this world, and he's intentionally keeping their world small. So I was a little right in some aspects and completely off in others. But I had developed, this whole backstory of the dad. And this is where I said my suspicions kept ping-ponging back and forth here and there. Because one thing I did notice with that first scene when they're playing hide and seek, yes, the dad's drinking, and yes, he did lock them in the basement. But even though he seemed disinterested and probably thought it was silly, the hide and seek game, he still went along with it, which tells me a little something. Yeah, there's some sketchy things here, but he's at least participating with his kids because they seem happy. And
these are all the things that we pick up in the opening sequence, which listeners, for anyone who maybe, and by the way, spoilers coming. This time I remember to say it, spoilers coming. If you haven't seen this movie yet and you don't want it spoiled, then maybe go watch the movie first. But for anyone who hasn't seen this movie or also watched it along with us, these images, we're meant to take in as much as we can from these images, because there's not like a ton of dialogue there's not a ton of dialogue throughout this entire film, but especially in the opening. So the other thing that we pick up because of the masks is that the air outside, or the fog in particular, that we are led to believe is toxic or unsafe, even though we do come across others out there who don't have masks on. So it's hard to know like what's real, what's not with regard to that. And Marcos goes missing, and then we get the title of the film. So that's all within the first 5 minutes.
If even that, yeah.
So I don't want to get to my questions till further in the discussion, but one of the things I appreciated about this movie, and the director, in some of the resources we have, the director kind of talked about the aesthetics of the film. It was very dark. So I was watching this, kept raising the brightness of my screen to try and see, because I was just what is it that I'm supposed to be looking at right now? I don't want to be surprised. So
the outdoors is almost like grayscale, and then the indoor shots are very sepia toned.
Okay, so what he said in an interview is and I appreciated this about the movie. He said, "I'm a very visual filmmaker. Since I was a child, I was taken to museums a lot by my parents. When developing this project, I thought a lot about Renaissance paintings, painters like Vermeer, Caravaggio, Rembrandt. Even before thinking about the whole story, I think more about the images I want to see on the screen. So thinking about the forest, the fog, a cabin. They did a lot of natural lighting. At the same time, very pictorial compositions." And then he says, "Finally, for me, the joy of making films is very important, and feeling that I'm making a work of art is fundamental. Before I have the script, I draw a lot." And I thought that was really interesting. And it makes sense. Like I said, I think that this film has got a lot of really powerful images. One of the ones that sticks out to me, and we'll get to the puppets, but that scene where Argel, and this was dream sequences. A lot of the dream sequences in this movie were some of the most frightening bits to me. Mind stumping. But that scene where Argel goes into a room, and it's a dream sequence, and he sees a lone puppet that looks like him, and the puppet turns to him and tells him, "Despierta, wake up." That's what's coming to mind. Those little just visual images that the movie gives you that are so striking and that stay with you. I was still thinking about it this morning. So
the one that I thought would have made a good movie poster, and maybe it was, I don't know, because I didn't look at any of them, but the scene where it's late, well into the movie, where the viejo and the chico, the old man and the kid, are in the cabin, they're eating, and then the kid smashes a jar over Angel's head to knock him out, and the old man has taken Luciana, and he's holding her by the throat with a knife, and he's telling the dad, I'll kill her. So the dad just calmly shoots him. And so then you just have a shot of Luciana standing there just breathing heavy with eyes wide open and just blood.
Just like completely traumatized. Does she die at the end? Is she dying?
We'll get to the ending because I have a question.
Okay. Oh, that scene where Argel skins the rabbit.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, no, I don't need to see it. Thank you.
But yeah, I thought that would have made a good movie poster. Because, the inside it's all sepia tone, but then she's got this red blood.
Yeah.
Just kind of covering half her face and down her chest.
The relationship. Well, you give one, and then we can talk more about the father relationship. Or you may have stuff related to him.
Well, I do have stuff related to the relationship with the parent and the kids, but it's more related to I tied it to the ending. Prior to that, my thoughts on the relationship kept shifting back and forth because I didn't know what the dad's story was. I didn't know what was up with him. But one of the turning points that caused my opinion to shift yet again, because like I said, Luciana had told Argel pretty early on that the darkness is in dad's room, which I think is what sparked a lot of his dreams, because he has that germinating in his head. And so I think that's why he had the dreams that he had. But those dreams were informing us as they were biasing us as well as the audience. Right. Argel keeps throughout the movie, he tries several times to get into his dad's, because the dad keeps his room locked for some reason.
Which is weird. Like, all of these things are weird.
Which is sketchy to begin with. So he keeps trying several times to get into the room to see what the hell's in there. And he finally does. The first time he doesn't find anything, is just a normal room. And then on a subsequent attempt, he discovers that there's a chain from the roof. So there's like an attic. There's like a door that leads up to the attic. And so he heads up there, and that's where he finds like all these puppets that their dad has carved out of wood. So
his father is a puppeteer. Yeah.
He's a puppeteer, which might metaphorically relate to a lot of other things in the movie. But in addition to that, he finds this other little compartment that he opens up, and there's gears in there. And so he starts turning the gears and discovers that this is the source of the monster sounds that they've been hearing their whole life, that has been their dad's reason for keeping them secluded and in this cabin. So here I was like, aha, my initial theory that he's intentionally keeping their world small.
Right. Because like the whole movie, you never see the beast. Whatever the beast is, you never see it, but you hear it, and it sounds huge. It sounds like this giant stomping around their house. And I was thinking maybe it's aliens, maybe it's something from another planet. We just don't know, and we never see it. So yeah, and when he discovered that, I was like, you see, he's manufacturing all of this. None of it's real. But then, at the end,
when we get to the end and we find out that there is something out there. So my question then, because it kills the girl, right? And she heard it, and they're outside. So I don't think their father is skilled enough to manufacture some big, huge thing that encompasses all of the outdoors.
Bizarrely, like when the kid is killed and she's left propped up against the tree, her belly is slit. When the father comes back at the end, he's injured with something at his abdomen as well. What is it? What is it that's injuring them, and why is it injuring them specifically there? Because the other thing that we saw about the kid prior to her death is she had a bunch of scars on her belly already. Remember when she has to remove her shirt?
Well, I think in the animal world, I think it's pretty common for when animals go for the kill, they go for either jugular or
the belly.
They're vulnerable spots that will for sure bring about death. So my question then, once we find out, well, there is something actually out there, why then do you think, Valerie, that the dad then went to the extreme of also creating something in the house to replicate that sound or to...
I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't know if... I don't know, because I don't know if he's thinking I'll make something to try to ward it off, maybe. And then at the end, the father is standing there in the rain. Argel is calling out to him, and the sound emanates. And so we know, okay, it's not the father generating it. It is coming from somewhere out there in the wilderness. And he takes off with his axe to go deal with it. It leaves you open for interpretation, because we could believe the father's not the bad guy after all. And look, he's trying to save and protect his children. Or like, we don't see what he goes after. We don't see what happens. All we know is that he takes off, he comes back, he's injured, and he's got his children back around him again. And he's happy because he's got them back under his wing.
Well, let me tell you, when Argel sees him and then we see that shot of him in the misty outdoors and he's got the axe, I was like, oh God, is this going to be a shining moment? But here's the thing. So no. I think there actually was something in this world, or at least in their little section of the world, that was some kind of predatory thing. And when I kind of was sitting there thinking about it the whole rest of the night, I was like, well, but then why did he make the gears and the contraption in the house? And I think that as a parent with young children, and it's hard, right, to keep young children, how are you going to keep them in the house? How are you going to keep them safe? Well, right. You build on their, which may not be the best thing. I'm not saying he was the best parent or went about things in the best way. Definitely could communicate more with his kids.
I know. Make it okay to talk.
But I think he just went the route of I'll build on their fears. I'll magnify them to make sure that then they don't even want to go out. So it's not going to be like this constant, I'm going to have to keep pulling them in. They're going to keep wanting to be curious and go outside. And this way they'll want to be inside. I think it was just him being like protective in the extreme.
Right.
And which again, maybe not the best or healthiest way to do it, but I think that was his intention.
Yeah.
That he was doing it to like keep them in.
Well, and it makes sense with, again, and I'm I don't know if you read this. I know you said that you like didn't want anything to sort of interfere with your own interpretations of the film, but I think you might be onto something, because in one of the interviews with the director, they talk about his influence with Cormac McCarthy's The Road as one of his influences for this movie. And sorry, I'm sniffling a lot. Everyone, I apologize. But they talk about how The Road is sad, but kind of has a more hopeful ending than this movie. But he says, I don't necessarily see the darkness as so hopeless. I feel that it is the end of existence. It is more like, even if we were to go into absolute darkness at the end of existence, what remains is a father who is protecting his son. And I think we are living in absolute darkness. But the fact that a father is protecting his son is something very beautiful, even if they're both going to die. For me, it was about talking about that last flame that gives meaning to our existence.
Yeah. I think him building the gears to manufacture the noise to help keep them in, I think it's just kind of a extreme version of what all of our parents probably mention at least once in life to kind of keep kids inside, is like the boogeyman's going to get you, or like in the Hispanic culture, the cucuy. Cucuy's going to get you if you go out at night, if you go out in the dark. So yeah. I think it's just a very extreme version of that.
Yeah. And like the machinery, whether or not it's like what is out there, we answered it. That was one of my ones that I wanted to talk about. But I had other, like, okay, the symbolism of the wolf, which like the wolf comes up quite a bit. What was your interpretation there? So the first time we see the wolf is when the wolf comes poking around the window and Luciana's looking out at it.
Yeah.
Right. And then we do see the wolf again approaching Argel outside when he thinks his brother's returned and they're touching each other's faces. And then the wolf appears a third time in the basement with the father.
And that one we know more than likely is not real, because the father's been locked, Argel locked.
He's locked in the basement.
So it's very interesting. And that was one of my questions as well. At various times in the movie, it appears to all three of our little family. So I could just kind of looked it up, like, okay, what is the symbolism of the wolf? And so it has a lot of different meanings, which kind of makes sense, because when it appears to the three different characters, it's going to symbolize something different for each of them. It's not going to necessarily have the same meaning for all three. So like some of the common things that wolf as a spirit animal or a vision or a dream can mean is it can mean instinct and intuition. So to trust your inner voice, to make decisions that reflect your true self. It can mean loyalty and family, because wolves are pack animals and with strong family bonds. It can mean courage or strength, resilience, courage in facing challenges, transformation and change, connection to nature, and just generally the mystery and the unknown. So it is interesting that all three characters see it at different points. I think for the dad, obviously, it probably, particularly for the time that it appeared to him, because he's locked in that room, his own son locked him in, took
Mhm.
Luciana and fled the cabin. And of course, Marcos had left earlier in the movie. And so I think he's just kind of sitting there. He looks very dejected. I think he's feeling maybe even a sense of betrayal by his own kids. Yeah. And then he looks up and he sees the wolf there. And so I think for him, it probably was meant to represent family, family bonds, but also instinct, like follow your instinct. And what is his primary instinct is as a father. So he gets the axe and he hacks his way out and he goes off looking for his kids. He looked like he had kind of given up there, and then the wolf appeared, and that's my take on it. And
it's so fascinating because it's like everything he's doing is motivated by love. He is so emotionally unavailable to his children that he just it reads sinister. And so, it's just
because even when Marcos goes missing, and at first I didn't even know that Marcos was one of the brothers or was a child, because there was like no processing of, like, he never existed, right? They didn't talk about it. The dad didn't let the kids like express any kind of, it was just like wipe it off the board, and no processing of their feelings. So that helped feed the sinister vibe. Now, what did you make of using that lens of, the different things that I mentioned that a wolf can symbolize? What do you think when it appeared to Argel when he sees him out in the woods?
I don't know, because like what he sees is the wolf and he lays down, and then what appears is he's having a vision of his brother. So I was interpreting the wolf as the spirit of, or I don't know, like as his brother in some respect.
I was like, did he shapeshift? Are these shapeshifters?
Yeah, but like I guess in the sense of what you just said in terms of symbolism of the wolf, I don't know, maybe it's a sense of instinct as well.
Some little voice is telling you something isn't right.
Right. Yeah.
And then I have no clue what it would symbolize to Luciana.
No.
I really can't pinpoint that little girl.
But honestly, because like that's after the wolf approaches the window after Marcos is already gone, and there's no trace of him. So again, because the next time we see the wolf, it's approaching Argel in the forest, and he has that vision of his brother. So at this point, I was still sort of thinking this wolf is a stand-in for Marcos, and Marcos is like, he goes to the window to see his sister one last time. He finds Argel in the forest, and it's a stand-in for Marcos is kind of how I was interpreting it, right up until the end when the wolf is just there in the basement with the father. I interpreted that as sort of Marcos in the corner forcing the father to maybe reckon with choices that he's made and actions that he's taken, even if they were coming from a good place. They were clearly harmful to the family. They had harmful impact to the family, unintended harmful impact. And so the wolf is just there to sort of hold a mirror up to, what's his face, Gustavo, and force him to reckon with what's happened and what his part was or has been in all of it. So I don't know. That was my initial interpretation watching it. Through holding up that lens for Gustavo to see himself and reflect on his own choices in this scenario, to also remember what he's fighting for and recommit himself to that fight. Where the axe came from, I don't know. Like, where did he get the axe? If the axe was down in the basement the entire time, I don't know why the kids didn't make use of it.
But then, because one of the things that a wolf can symbolize is transformation and change associated with cycles of life, at the end, I thought I saw, tell me if you saw, that Luciana had like blood on front of her outfit.
Yeah, she had blood. Like, yeah, she was bleeding from the mouth,
and
maybe?
She'd been caught, but she took no injury that we ever saw. But she's been coughing through the whole movie, right? So I'm wondering, does she have what they would have called consumption back in the old days, which is tuberculosis, which always like pretty much a death sentence back in the day. So is she dying? Maybe not like dying right now at the end of this movie, but is her life on that track where that's the path, is that she will eventually die from this? And so was that what the wolf represented to her? Is that transformation, that cycle of life that...
And the entire time that she puts all of these insects in jars, and she specifically says they're sleeping. They're sleeping. Like, she doesn't ever allude to death or whatever. She just says they're sleeping. I think at one point, didn't she say that about Their mother? Maybe I'm making that up. Yeah.
Yeah, no, she does.
So
when he gives her the picture and she puts the picture in the jar.
she's sleeping now. Fascinating. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like at the end of the movie, I was just like, that girl looks pretty close to dead. Like, did she die and we just didn't see it? I don't know. Speaking of like the dream sequences in this movie, like I said, those were some of the quote unquote scariest bits for me, at least the most unsettling. Like the scene where the father, like, after he shoots the old man, he ties the kid up against the tree and is presumably going to leave her for dead. Then he has a change of heart and drags her back inside, changes her into dry clothes. They have dinner, whatever. They tie her up and leave her in the living room so that they can all go to sleep at night. And then at some point in a dream sequence, Argel dreams that he walks out and she's just tied up in the chair there with her belly splayed open and there's blood dripping down on her forehead. And the camera pans up to something dark, and we don't like. I was just like, "What is it? What is it? What is it?"
It's like a humanoid. Moves. It was like a humanoid, just pitch black dark figure.
And then it moves, and we see eyes, and I was just like, "Ah!" Like, so that was a little bit of a jump scare moment. There's those scenes that I guess feel like traditional horror movie-esque elements, but where it fits in terms of the story, I don't know. It just sort of seemed.
What are dreams except manifestations of our own fears or our own things that we're grappling with? So Argel is dealing with the fact that he is suspicious of his father. You know, he knows his father. He has questions, and it's fueled by his sister telling him the darkness is in Dad's room. So what does he dream? He dreams that literally his father's this dark creature, or whether he thinks his father's the dark creature or if his father is keeping a dark creature in the room. But that's what's fueling this dream. As the audience, when we first see it, our initial reaction is to take it as, oh, this must be truth then, right?
This is the darkness.
Luciana must have been right. And so this fuels us as the audience. We're kind of along this emotional journey with Argel. His suspicions are our suspicions. And that's what's fueling the dream. And that doesn't make the dream true. Now, Luciana was literally correct in the darkness, the manufactured darkness, the gears are in the room. She is right, but just in the most basic literal sense, but not in the way that we as the audience up until the discovery of the gears are thinking.
Yeah.
So this is why I said when you get to the end of the movie, you kind of have to go back and just view everything that happened through a different lens, which I think is pretty cool.
So prior to Argel going up to the attic and seeing all these puppets, all of which, by the way, look strikingly like Gustavo's children. But prior to that, the first puppet we see is like they're sitting at the table with the kid who's eating, and the father abruptly gets up silently, no words, no dialogue, and goes off. And I thought, he's so grossed out watching her eat, so he has to get up and go away.
I was grossed up. I was
makes
like,
sense. But then he comes out with this puppet. It's like this spider-looking puppet with like a humanoid head. And I was like, what the crap is this? It's like, what?
But she liked it, Luciana, because she's into bugs.
He made it for her, but it was just like, it came out of nowhere with the context of the rest of the movie. So I was just like, what the hell?
No, because he finds her.
Ron, I know, I get it. But like at this point, we don't know that he's a puppeteer. So it's just this random introduction of a puppet. I was just like, what?
Well, it's not a puppeteer. He's a woodworker.
Yeah.
We know that he's got the shavings on. So we know that he's been working on something. I thought it was a sweet gesture. But I do want to touch point on what your thoughts on of the picture that inspired the spider, because he finds the drawing that Luciana has made, and it's a picture of him as a spider holding up the disembodied heads of Luciana and Argel. His feet are like vice grip on top of Marcos's head. What were your thoughts on that picture?
Again, it fuels the idea that they're all under his control, and he is the puppet master, essentially. And you would think him coming across that drawing would be unsettling and kind of heartbreaking for him. I like that. I guess he turns that around and makes this puppet that he hopes will make her happy. Seems like it does. All it does is fuel further suspicion that the father is not someone that they can trust, and that the father does not have their best interests at heart. For me, it was just yet another point deduction for this character. I don't know. Like if I were him and I came across this disturbing drawing that my child made, I that would be upsetting. I would think,
well, and he was upset. He it looked like he was reacting to it and almost started crying about it, and then decided. I think this is just a man who, and again, this is a situation where I was like ping ponging back and forth. It's like, is he bad? Is he not? Because he did make this gift for her. Yeah, it's disturbing to us, but she liked it. She's into bugs, so she even smiled when she saw it. And later on we see her in bed sleeping with it. So she kind of didn't want to necessarily take it and embrace it, other than the brief smile. She doesn't take it from her father initially when he presents it to her. She doesn't embrace it then, because she still seems a little like, I'm not sure about you, Dad. But she does clearly love it because she's sleeping with it later on in bed. We see it in bed with her. I thought, yeah, the picture's disturbing, and why would she draw that? But then he made this nice gift that in a manner that he knows that she would love. And so that was a very tender thing to do. And so, yeah, it was just kind of all these little things back and forth that I just kept waffling. I was like a pendulum swinging back and forth. It's like,
right. Yeah.
Where am I going to land with this?
There was a moment in the movie, and I'm trying to remember what was happening. Argel is outside. I think it's him outside. I think it's when he goes out by himself. He somehow gets out by this is the same scene where he's going to see the wolf. He's going to lay down and have that experience that he thinks he sees his brother. So he has somehow his father, I think, had a night of heavy drinking the night before, so he passed out and is still out. This must be early in the morning. I don't know. So Argel goes out, I guess, presumably to look for Marcos. And prior to seeing the wolf, there's a figure that walks by in the frame. There was like a person that walks by in the frame, and the music reacts to it. So it's like it's meant to be kind of a jump scare moment, but you don't see what it is. You don't know what it is. And then shortly after that, you do see the wolf, but it's a figure in black. So I didn't know if you caught that or what that might be. So
no.
Okay.
I didn't see that at all.
Okay. It was a person, or what we're meant to believe is a person, but then it never materializes. So I don't know. Like you said at the beginning, we never really get a story for how this situation came to be, what happened in the world that resulted in this, that there's just been a breakdown of society. And it's not just something where the father has kind of manufactured any of this, because we do encounter that viejo and the kid who clearly are also out there
living some rough days.
Yeah, just vagabonds and hunting, begging for food.
That is actually one of my questions. One of the things that I wanted to bring up is like their motivations.
Those two?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm guessing because I didn't see that coming. I did not see them turning on the family. And when the old man took the knife to the little girl's throat, what did he want? What did he want? What did he say?
Well,
give me all your
okay. So they first appear when Gustavo has taken Argel out into hunting, but the dad says he's trying to chase down a deer, so he tells Argel to sit still, just sit right here, and he goes off to hunt the deer. And while Argel is waiting there for him, that's when he sees the old man and the girl come up. Argel is asking them, if they've seen Marcos, and they're like, well, we can take you to Marcos. And then he says something very weird. He said, but first we have to eat. Mm-hmm. And it was the way he said it that I initially thought, I've seen too many episodes of The Walking Dead. I was like, cannibals! They want to eat him. It was just the way he said it. And it's like a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
But first we have to eat.
Right.
And then, Gustavo comes back and chases them off, blah, blah, blah. Well, they show up at the cabin later on. That's what I think they were. I think that they were looking to eat them, to kill them, to eat them. So...
Well, I can't remember what he says to Gustavo when he has the knife to the Luciana's throat. Like, he says something, and I can't remember what it is.
Put the gun down, or put the gun down, because he's got the rifle trained on him. And
yeah, I mean, if not eat them, then the only other thing is like maybe they're gonna like turn them out and essentially take over their house. Like they're looking for shelter, and like we're gonna take this and kick you people out or something. I don't know. After Gustavo shoots the man dead, I don't know if they're just like, what do we do now? I was just like, in my brain, I was like, they're going to eat him. They're going to eat the old man. Because at this point, they've already brought in a dead deer into their house I'm like, you could do that outside. You could clean and gut the deer outside. I didn't see that coming. So that was one of the moments where I like gasped. I was like,
yeah. And I'm like, because you don't do that. Like the girl smashes a jar over Rafael's head to knock him out. You don't do that if you have even semi-good intentions.
Yeah.
Like you have bad intentions, whatever they are. But yeah, I think they're cannibals. I think they ate Marcos. That's what I think happened to Marcos.
What? Like, that was the other thing that was so bizarre. It's like she comes more than once. She tells Argel, I can take you to Marcos. I can take you to Marcos. And then like as she's running away, Marcos is dead. It's like, what were you going to take him to then? Like
I think they still have other people, like a little settlement or an encampment of other people, and because that's kind of what predators do, right? When you have a herd of you weed out, like they cut off the small animals, the baby animals, the most vulnerable.
There was a part of me that wondered as she's running away and she says that to him, there was a part of me that wondered, or I guess wanted to cling to the hope that maybe Marcos was still somewhere and we were going to find him by the end of this movie. There was a part of me that wondered if she just said that to him in order to maybe get him to give up the search, because maybe that's what was going to be safest for him in the moment. Like, stop looking. We'll come find you when the time is right. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense really. But in my brain, I was just like, maybe she's just telling him that to get him to give up right now. And then at the end, we'll get some happy endings.
No, I don't.
But it was not to be.
I don't think she had any pure intentions. If anything, I think she probably just said it to be.
And then she appears
spiteful.
out of nowhere once Gustavo breaks out of the basement and finds Argel and Luciana, and he's got the axe. She appears out of nowhere and clocks him unconscious with a rock. And then she runs away again. And I'm like, what is this woman's deal? Where is she going? Why is she?
I think she's like that. What was that movie? Oh, The Book of Eli. Denzel Washington's character is walking along and he sees like a woman who seems like in distress on the side of the road, and she's pleading for help and he's totally ignoring her. And when you're first watching this, you're thinking, I think that's kind of heartless. You're not going over there to help this woman. He was right, because she was just the bait for a bunch of men to come in and attack. So I think that's what the girl was. It's like she's the bait, she's the lure, she's the facade of innocent, and you can trust her because she's just a kid. But I think that's what I think. That's what's happening in my head canon, is she's got a group of people, cannibals, and that this is she's trying to eliminate the dad. Because I kept wondering too, like, why does she keep popping up and helping Argel? Is she helping Argel, or is she just trying to nullify the parental figure who's the threat?
Right. I think what's interesting, what is an interesting choice that the director makes here, is that normally, like in a lot of the Hollywood style versions of these films, we would get a definitive answer on that. There would be something in the plot that would tell you, okay, that assessment is correct. And here we don't necessarily get that. So whether or not she's part of some broader scheme from a group of other people like her to just find people to prey upon, we don't get that information. So we're left to just sort of ponder on that.
What we do get from that scene, though, is after she knocks out the dad, Gustavo, and she's trying to entice Argel to come, and we hear the noise, right? The monster noise. And she clearly doesn't seem like she
doesn't seem to know what it is.
She doesn't know what it is either.
Yeah.
Which kind of validates that, okay, this thing is real. This other person also hears it. Then, of course, she runs off by herself. And at first I thought Gustavo was dead, because, Argel is trying to get him to wake up, and he won't wake up. So he picks up his sister and he starts walking back to their cabin. And along the way, he finds the girl, like you said, propped up against a tree, and she's dead. Mm-hmm. So there is something out there. There's some predatory essence out there.
Because she hears a sound, she doesn't seem to know what it is. Did you get the sense that not only did she not know what it is, but did you get the sense that it's like she hadn't heard something like that before? It was bizarre to me, because for someone who clearly lives outside and must have been exposed to this her whole life, she seemed to behave like she didn't know
what the first time.
Right, which felt weird to me, because I was just like, well, you would think you would know what this is, or at least have been exposed to it because you've lived with it. all this time. That threw me off too, because it kind of further informed my theory at the time that this was all something the father was somehow manufacturing. I don't know. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because then
many questions.
The dad
is
knocked
out clearly,
he's knocked out, so he's not
I have no idea. Yeah, but it was an interesting one thing that the director says that I think you will appreciate, Ron, in terms of how he approached this movie. And he doesn't necessarily spell it all out for you. He does say in another interview, Hollywood cinema already knows how to sell and has the means to make things look brutal. But there are other ways to approach those themes, and they can be more powerful because we leave them to the public's imagination, and that is a more potent force. And I like that. I like that he's like, I'm not looking to do it the Hollywood way.
Well, let's get to that ending now.
Okay.
What did you make of the ending? Because we have Gustavo comes back. Argel is huddled in the basement or whatever you call that underground room with Luciana, who is not alert.
Right.
I don't know if she's alive or dead, but she's not alert. She's not awake. And there seems to be blood around the collar of her outfit. So he's huddled down there with her. Gustavo makes his way down the stairs, and he's been injured. He's blood on his abdomen, and slides down the wall to the floor, and no words spoken at this point. He just kind of like gives a little half smile to Argel. Argel gives a half smile back, and then he pulls himself and his sister over to huddle with their dad. The lantern burns out, and this was really cool, I thought, because it holds that pitch black for a few seconds before the end credits starts playing. So
he says something. Yeah,
he says, "Papa, tengo miedo." Father, I'm afraid. And the father says, "Tranquilo, aquí estoy." Don't worry, I'm here. And then it goes. So
I don't know, because like it's just like it seems like the old man, like the father, is mortally wounded, and it seems like the girl, like you said, if she's not dead yet, she's maybe not long for this world either. So it's just like, what is to become of them? Is it just going to be Argel who makes it through the night? But also, like, the whole movie, there is no night. And that's the other thing that isn't necessarily spelled out for us in the film, in the reading that we did on this movie. It seems to be like the earth has stopped rotating. So because the earth is no longer rotating, there is no day turns into night. It's just day for them. But they are in darkness because, as a way of sort of keeping up routines, the father would board up windows and kind of create a sense of night. And maybe also as a way to protect them from whatever it was that was out there. But I don't know what happens. I like with the loss of that last light, is it just perpetual darkness they're going to be in now? Is the father, is it just going to be Argel on his own? Do they live to see the next day or whatever? I don't know. What did you make of it?
I think it's left ambiguous intentionally and open-ended for people to craft the ending that best suits them. The ending that best suits me is that the father, because we don't see the wound, we just see the blood on the shirt. So maybe it was just not as serious of a wound. Maybe it was just kind of like a glancing scratch and he'll recover and be fine. Luciana, I think she probably is dying of some illness, but not necessarily in this moment. Maybe she's just exhausted. So I choose to think that life will still go on for them for a little while longer. But now Argel, I think, has a better understanding of his father and maybe why his father chose to do some of the things that he did, has a better understanding of the real dangers that are out in the world, not just whatever that thing is, but also other people, that you can't just blindly trust other people in this apocalyptic world. But I actually got a little choked up. The screen is pitch black and you hear Argel's voice saying, "Dad, I'm scared." And his father tells him, "I'm here." Because I think as a parent, that's what you do. And however imperfectly, and Gustavo certainly did a imperfect parental job throughout this movie, but he did the best he knew how to do to keep his kids safe, whether they understood it, whether they appreciated it, or were grateful for it. How many times do you hear that parenting is a thankless job for a lot of the time until your kids grow up and understand? But yeah, I got a little choked up there because I just saw it as like, Gustavo, I mean, that's what you do as a parent, right? You stand sentinel. You stand between yourself and the world. You stand between your kids and the world. you stand in that gap and you keep watch. And that's what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that there was hope that he was going to, at least in small ways, turn things around. Because you see the shot where he's like pouring all of his liquor down the sink.
Yeah.
So you get the sense that, okay, he knows that things haven't been handled the best, and that he, at least in that moment, wants to try to do better. When
and you get this, and this is just me being silly, but it's like you get this sense that it's like, man, so many things could be avoided, sir, if you would just communicate more.
Yes. No, absolutely.
Just communicate more.
And that's why I said, it was an imperfect way that he was doing it.
Right. Yeah.
Motivated by, eventually we come, as the audience, we come around, like Argel, to understand, okay, I have a better, maybe not understand completely, but I have a better understanding of you as a person. And we as the audience have a better understanding. And so that's why I say it made me kind of go back and relook at some of his choices through a different lens, as opposed to just the lens of like sketchiness and questionable motivations. And
right. I think that this is all we get of this movie, and it's kind of a movie where it's like I want there to be more story, because there's just so many things that we don't get answered at the end in terms of environment and outside context, all of that stuff. So that's sort of like where the ending happens, and I was just like, what? Like, what? I want, there's more information that I needed. So it's the kind of movie where it's like, I want there to be more movie. I want there to be a follow-up movie. And I don't know that we're going to get that, but really interesting story. You had talked about last episode, you didn't say it on the podcast, but you and I discussed it after the show, a kind of rating system. I don't know where light switches. Yeah.
So in terms of like, is this a movie that you really should not watch at night? You should watch it in daytime. Like how many light switches do we need for this movie?
In terms of, there aren't a whole lot of jump scares here, if any. I think
it's more of a suspense.
It's suspenseful. And there's occasionally disturbing, I don't even want to say disturbing, there's occasionally unsettling images that stick with you. And I did note after I finished the movie, I did wonder if this was going to invade my dreams a little bit, because it's, like I said, the imagery is so striking and unsettling in parts of this film that I was wondering, I was like, man, I might have some bad dreams tonight. And I kind of did. And not bad dreams, but like disturbing dreams that weren't necessarily related to this, but maybe not unrelated to this. I don't know. There might be a correlation. So on a scale of what? How many light switches?
I'd say 5.
Okay, 5 being don't watch this at night.
5 being you have to watch it at night with all of your lights on.
Okay.
Or like if you're going to watch, let's do it that way. Not if you're going to watch it during the day, but like if you're going to watch it at night, how many lights do you have to have on? Like, okay.
I would say maybe for me like a 3. Where would you rank it?
Like a 2.
Okay.
I found it more suspenseful than scary. And I picked out my line for this would be good on a t-shirt. And this one's not so much funny, but I think it's kind of the line that drives the whole movie. Is the answer to this question, drives the whole movie and drives our perceptions as the audience, our suspicions, and certainly Argel's is like where Argel says, "Donde está Marcos?"
Where is Marcus? Yeah.
That would be my selected line for the t-shirt. Yeah. Not as funny as not the chickpeas, but
not the chickpeas. Really interesting movie.
I
liked it a lot. I mean, I thought it was, I think it's even described in some of the stuff we looked at as an art house film. And I kind of like that.
He said this was like part of a trilogy, not in terms of narrative. So it's not like a true trilogy. I think it was more a trilogy in terms of like tone. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing was that the actor who played Gustavo, how do you say his name? Jodorowsky was in that his first movie, Thou, and had the same character name, Gustavo.
But it's not related. The story isn't related?
Seem to be related. I didn't really look a whole lot into it. But
I know, because like the more I came across the way he talks about these movies as being like a trilogy, I was just like, well, shoot, did we drop in the middle of this trilogy? Maybe that's why I'm so confused.
No, I think I saw also elsewhere that he said they're not a trilogy in like a narrative sense. So it's like, it's just more thematic or tone.
I do think that this is one that a lot of people might, because based off of what I find in terms of interviews and stuff that we link for you guys, that always gives me a good indication as to how much a film is out there. And I was telling Ronnie, there's not enough out there, honestly, of talking about this movie, which kind of tells me it's not really on a whole lot of people's radars. If you haven't ever heard of this one.
Yeah, I would recommend it.
Yeah.
Just with the caveat of know that it's a slow burn. It's a much slower paced movie than what your typical, for sure, American horror movie. Maybe not so much. And I've noticed that also as a trend in so far the Latin American movies that we've watched. A lot of them, the majority of them, I think, ease into it. You know, they kind of take their time. And this one maybe even a little more than most. But
right.
So yeah, just go in knowing that it's going to be slow paced. It's a slow burning movie, but I still definitely think it's worth the watch.
The themes of it are cool. If you're somebody who, again, I didn't see A Quiet Place. I can't
believe you haven't seen A Quiet Place. Why?
I mean, because everybody latched onto it, and it's
good.
I'm counterculture. So also, like, that guy bothers me. What's his name?
Don Krasinski?
I just know him from Jim from The Office.
He's not anything like Jim from The Office in this movie.
I know. I shouldn't say he bothers me. He doesn't bother me. I have a hard time seeing him in stuff outside of The Office. So I should try it. I don't know. But yeah, if you're into movies like that, I didn't see Bird Box either. Is Bird Box kind of dystopian? Is it kind of post-apocalyptic? What's happening with Bird Box?
Well, I didn't watch the movie. I read the book.
What is
based on?
Tell me.
It's post-apocalyptic also.
Yeah. So if like
where you can't, everyone has to be blindfolded because if you see whatever it is, it drives you mad. Yeah. So like basically everybody lives blindfolded who has survived.
Okay, so yeah, like those kinds of films, this has elements of that. I think that that are enjoyable. I want more information. I need more information.
We need closure.
I'm left wanting some closure. But it's a good movie. I definitely recommend it. I think more people should be talking about it. It should be on more lists.
I need to ask you because in the last one I said we were 2 for 2 for 2025, and you said no, we're 3. We watched 3 movies because we watched Kronos. But wasn't Kronos in December?
No, my love. It was the first film that we opened here in January. It's the first. It was the first film of 2025.
Whatever.
We watched it.
Well, we're still on a roll. I think we're still on a roll.
We are. We're doing good. Yeah, Kronos. We posted that episode January 6th, so that was our first one of the new year.
Okay, but I watched it in December. No,
probably. Yeah, probably.
I don't know.
The reason we did it then is because
did we record it in December?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Probably. Anyway. I don't know. But we kind of coincided. Everyone, Nosferatu came out and everyone was like talking about Nosferatu. And I was like, well, what can we do that's kind of vampire related? And that one came up. So
that's initially, by the way, since you brought that up, when at the beginning of the movie, when he starts like blocking the windows, I was like, are there vampires in this movie?
Yeah.
No vampires.
Yeah. Like, why did the earth stop turning? I mean, maybe there's something to be said for maybe it's not. Maybe something didn't happen. Maybe it's just the result of maybe this is a climate movie. Maybe this has something to do with environmental impact of humans.
You can interpret a lot of things a lot of different ways, but are you feeling the pressure, Valerie, to because we haven't, in my opinion, haven't had a miss yet in terms of movies that we
it's mounting. It's mounting, especially knowing Veronica's standards. I'm like, well, I'm gonna fall eventually. It's just a question of when. And I worried because I wasn't finding a whole lot on this movie. I worried this was going to be it. I was like, oh man, this could be a total dud.
Yeah, you texted me that, and I'd already watched it. Or else was very near finishing, and I was like, no, I got lots of questions. We'll have things to talk about.
The puppets were so beautiful. He really is.
I was like, why didn't he let them play with them?
It just sort of made me wonder again, questions go unanswered. It made me wonder what his life was before. Like, what was their life? It would have been cool. It might have been interesting if we had some flashback scenes of life. Maybe him and his wife, and just sort of to get a better understanding of who they were.
I think at the very least, he was probably a very good master craftsman. And I think carving the puppets are kind of his form of therapy of dealing with their life. Yeah. Why he doesn't let them play with them, right? Maybe it's because he didn't want to. He feared sparking that sense of play, and then maybe they would want to be outside. I don't know.
It does seem like in the film
he didn't want to open that door.
Right.
He didn't want to, like, what's the word? Encourage their sense of play, their curiosity, because maybe that might lead to. I don't know.
It's like he would cap the fun. He's like, okay, that's enough fun. Time to sleep, and put them down in the basement. Interesting film. If you guys watch it, let us know what you think of it. We do want to let you guys all know that we are reading Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin. It is our Don't Watch at Night book club pick, and we're going to have an episode coming for you end of April, I said? End of April, because we rolled out the pick a little bit. Yeah, end of April. We rolled out the pick a little bit later.
Plenty of time.
From what I understand, I don't think this is a very long read, so we should get it done pretty quick. Anything else that you're watching or reading or taking in right now, Ron?
Nope.
I will tell you, I just watched on Netflix that Gabby Petito documentary. It's like a 3-episode documentary of Gabby Petito.
Was she that van lifer?
That van lifer girl.
I didn't know they had already done something on her. I was wondering.
Yeah, it's just 3 episodes.
I was watching like all the stuff happening on YouTube as all that was unfolding. I was following the events because, I think it started during COVID when I kind of latched onto watching all those van life, and I would like to do it. I can't convince my husband to do it, but I'm totally for giving it a go. Yeah, I started watching a lot of those van life channels. I hadn't heard of her specifically, but once that whole story broke, there's a lot of channels on YouTube of like your people, Valerie, the true crime, people that have channels that were like, they had maps on their background, and then this was spotted here, and they found this here, and they were mapping how long it took the boyfriend to drive wherever. So it was, I was following it all.
Yeah, I remembered it in the news, but I wasn't necessarily like plugged in and following a whole lot of it, but I knew enough. And I had my theories. Mm-hmm. Coming away from this documentary, I wouldn't necessarily say that I have any better sense of what happened. It is, the only thing I will say is that it's really heartbreaking. The video of her talking to police when they get pulled over, following that call in that somebody saw somebody hitting her and, a man slapping his girlfriend around. Watching that video of her and seeing her in the state of distress that she's in, and kind of understanding what we know about domestic violence situations and how that can kind of play out. There's so many moments there where there's just so many mistakes that those police officers made. Mistakes were made in that pullover. Had they done anything differently, it might have. It's sad. It's really sad. Yeah, that's the only
Where's
other
that
thing
showing?
On Netflix.
Netflix.
That's the only thing that I've really taken in. Oh, did you watch that trailer I sent you for The Residents? Okay, so that's a new Netflix series starting March 20th. It's The Residents. It's Shonda Rhimes, and it looks like a fun whodunit that takes place in the White House adjacent world. So it looks cool. The only other thing I wanted to mention, I guess, is, guys, over on our Patreon, we do have, Patreon allows you to now, you can start up a chat thread that basically ropes in everyone, all of the members of Patreon into that chat thread. So we do have a book club chat thread going. Feel free to chime in with your takes on the reading. I think I said this on the Cocktail Hour live stream. Just be mindful. Everyone's reading at different paces. Try not to drop any spoilers if you can, or just give people a heads up that something is spoiler heavy. And you can start up chats for other things. Like, I wouldn't mind starting up, like, maybe we can start up a chat around a show we're all watching, or a movie we want to watch. We can have a chat party watch thing. It's just something to play with if you wander over to Patreon and join us there. And the chat is for everyone, whether you are in the $3 tier or not. It's for everybody. Thank you so much for listening. We've got more to come down the pipe, but we will see you next time.
Bye. Don't Watch at Night is a Nest production hosted by me, Veronica, and Valerie. Editing by Valerie. Music by Omar Chakor. Production support for this episode provided by Lorenzo Villarreal and Alex Street. Listen to new episodes of Don't Watch at Night every other Monday, and don't forget to give us a rate and review. It's the best way to help us grow.